back to Celsius, the latest hot topic in crypto, where lawyers for the Celsius network are laying out plans for the crypto lender's path during a second-day hearing in bankruptcy court. Joining us now to break this down is 507 Capital Managing Partner Thomas Braziel. Thomas, welcome back to the show. So there's a lot going on with Celsius. Let's just get to, I think, what most people want to know is, what is the likelihood that some of these investors, or that these investors are going to get their money back? Like these sort of ordinary retail investors, what's the probability here, and like how long could it take?
Sure. Thanks for having me on again. So it's a high likelihood they get something back. The question is like what the recoveries are and what the best path forward is for the company. And I think, there's probably some divergent views early in the case, and towards the end, hopefully there'll be some people will coalesce around the best strategy. But yeah, I would say, I think I said this in the first, generally a typical bankruptcy is something like 16 to 18 months for a large Chapter 11. That number's actually been coming down, someone was telling me. And I think there's probably some truth to that. And if you look at the numbers from the first day declaration, it looked like somewhere between call it 50 to 60 cents on the dollar. And then they put out they called to it a coin report, I believe is the phrase they used. And the debtor is burning a ton of cash on professional fees and on investing in their mining business, that's part where there might be difference of opinion about how to approach it. And that could either materially increase or decrease recoveries, TBD.
So just kind of along with that, when Celsius first filed for bankruptcy, one of the questions was, or bankruptcy protection rather, one of the questions was, is this kind of just like a comeback act? Like, is Celsius just kind of trying to basically, rise from the ashes? I mean, what are the chances of Celsius coming back and continuing to operate in some form after these proceedings?
As someone who's gotten closer and closer to the customers in this case, I would say the consumer business is dead. Maybe someone can buy the customers and, a la Sam Bankman-Friedman deal for Voyager, where he's just going to buy the customers and like port over the accounts. But I think the brand itself is dead in the consumer sense. The mining business is interesting. They have some facilities they're building. They have a lot of orders for equipment. So it's possible if Bitcoin were to move and sort of step back into a bull phase and double or triple, that the mining assets could be a salvation of the estate. Now there should be a distinction here between like 100% repay on a fiat basis versus 100% repay on a crypto basis. I think 100% repay on a crypto basis is you just need to kind of like, if you're a creditor or someone that's involved, like kind of forget about that. That's not in the cards. But 100% repay based on what you had at the petition date, if crypto were to rip, so to speak, to use a technical term, could happen.
So these customers that you're talking about, I mean, is there a feeling not just of wanting to at least be made whole or as close to whole as possible financially, but do they also, how eager are they to potentially at least pressure or at least encourage perhaps a criminal case against Celsius?
Yeah, I think that there is, I would say the difference between Celsius and Voyager is there's a lot more animosity towards Alex Mashinsky and the C-suite of Celsius. They kind of operated a very complicated business in comparison to Voyager, having the loan business, having the custody business, or not business, but the custody account resolution with the state AGs. And then, just in general, it seems like their business was a little messier. Again, technical term there. But I think there are people looking for criminality within the pre-petition activity. I would say if you're a creditor and you're a business person, or you just want the highest recovery, does that really help you? I don't know that it does. I mean, maybe it makes you feel better. But if there's criminal proceedings against Mashinsky, it would clearly stop any civil proceedings against him, which is where you're going to get additional recovery outside of what's in the company, what you can get back from your DeFi programs, what you can get out of the mining business and the GK8 assets. So it's interesting to talk about, but it's not going to help recoveries. And in fact, it would slow down recoveries.
Thomas, you were involved, a number of years back now in the Mt. Gox bankruptcy, which I think is an interesting thing to look back on, because obviously a large number of people lost a chunk of money at that time. But folks who sort of held out and maintained claims that were connected to the recovery in the core asset, Bitcoin, actually came out pretty well, just simply because of the recovery in the price. I mean, what are the lessons then for what the strategy should be for both, in anybody who's a creditor here, with secured or unsecured, in Voyager's, or can we not map, right? Because the past is not necessarily prologue.
So a few things. One, forced total sometimes is a good thing, right? I think a lot of Mt. Gox creditors learned that. They probably would have sold 10, 20, 30 times over at peaks and troughs when they, had a bad day at work and they decided, gosh, I should really sell this Bitcoin. So that's one thing a lot of people learned. The Japanese legal process is a lot slower than the American, so people really shouldn't port that time frame onto these cases. And it just depends on your opportunity cost, like in any investment. Like if you can get 25 cents, then the recovery is going to be 50, 40, or 50 cents. But you have a good business investment opportunity, or a new crypto project you're interested in, or a new company you want to start, or you want to go back to school or buy a house. There are lots of reasons where it's an opportunity cost. That's the way you should sort of think about it, in my mind, from a personal investment standpoint, as opposed to just, you're selling for half, so you got to sort of figure out, it's not always a bad trade, I guess, and there are individual circumstances, people that have debt behind the scenes in their own personal life, or just circumstances that mean it makes sense for them to maybe sell or hold. But, again, forced total can be a good thing. So